Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us, especially on this historic day for today's webinar, Advantages of the Home Study for Metachromatic Leukodystrophy. NORD and the FDA are pleased to share the next hour with the MLD community. Our goal for the webinar today is to introduce the home study team, share information about the home study, how it was designed, what makes it unique, and to have an engaging discussion about how this work addresses an unmet need in rare disease therapy development. For nearly 4 decades, the National Organization for Rare Disorders, NORD, has focused on the health and well-being of people living with rare diseases and their loved ones. What you will hear from our speakers today about the home study is just one example of the thought, care, and support that feeds all of NORD's programs and initiatives to advance options and improve circumstances for the rare community. My name is Vanessa Boulanger, and I am the Director of Research at NORD. I have the great privilege of working closely and collaboratively with our esteemed panelists, and it is my pleasure to be the host of today's webinar. Our speakers today include Pamela Gavin, who is the Chief Strategy Officer for NORD. She sets the strategic direction and implements innovative programs and services to address the needs of the rare disease community. Pam comes to this project with both professional and personal passion, having experienced the impact of and loss from MLD in her own family. Our next speaker is Dr. Martin Ho, who is the Associate Director of Science for Patient Inputs and Real-World Evidence at the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. He leads a team of multidisciplinary experts to conduct regulatory science research around patient input and the application of real-world evidence and digital health technologies. Josie Hensley, our home study coordinator, is a dedicated clinical research nurse and experienced project manager with over 10 years of pediatric intensive care unit nursing in one of the largest standalone pediatric research institutions in the country. She has worked with rare disease families in the past and fell in love with supporting their journey. And Maria Cappalos also joins us today. She's a professor, an author, a blogger, a co-founder of the Calliope Joy Foundation, director of outreach and corporate relations for Cure MLD, and a parent of a beloved child with MLD. We are delighted to bring together this esteemed and passionate panel and to share with you all about the home study. I'll turn it over to Pam to get us started.
Thank you, Vanessa. It's a pleasure to speak with you all today about the MLD home study and the program at NORD that is hosting this study, the I Am Rare Research Collaborative Program. The I Am Rare program began several years ago. It grew out of discussions with the community, informed by conversations and meetings with FDA, NIH, and those actually living with rare diseases, where we were focusing on what patients and families, as well as patient advocacy organizations, can do to help support and contribute to the development of treatments for those living with rare conditions. We came away from those discussions focused on natural history studies, because in the field of rare diseases, it's often those living with those conditions and their caregivers that understand it best. And it's also an area where we have gaps of knowledge and understanding. The patient community has a unique opportunity to contribute that understanding and lived experience to the work that researchers, drug developers, and regulators do to get therapies discovered, developed, and improved for human consumption. So to fill a gap that existed in the marketplace at the time, NORD devoted resources to develop a program that included software, platform, and tools, and a series of other resources, human resources, support services necessary for members of the rare disease community to establish natural history studies for rare conditions, and to do so in collaboration with key stakeholders in the community, including those interested in conducting research, clinicians caring for people with rare conditions, those who are developing drugs and other types of therapies for rare conditions, and those who work in the regulatory agencies, such as FDA, who are ultimately involved in improving our knowledge of these conditions so that we can accelerate the process of developing therapies. We named the program I Am Rare to reflect our focus in empowering the patient community to engage where appropriate in this entire process. NORD is honored to be able to leverage this program to help FDA, and in particular CBER, in the instance of the home study, to support its work in this area. And I'm personally touched by the opportunity to support the MLD community through the launch of the home study program. The home study is a natural history study designed with the regulatory requirements of the FDA in mind and designed to visit with patients and caregivers virtually in their own homes. So the study team meets the study participants where they live, no travel involved. Through this pilot project, we hope to prove that such a model can actually work, not only for MLD, but for other rare diseases, and that if designed correctly, the results of the study can be used to inform the drug approval process. This is such a unique and exciting opportunity for the MLD community and the rare disease community at large. So to learn more about the home study, I'm going to turn over the presentation discussion to my colleague, Martin Ho. Take it away, Martin.
Thank you very much, Pam. It's my great pleasure of participating in this exciting event. My name is Martin Ho. I work at the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research. So perhaps what we wanted to do is to start talking about what is the home study and why is it important to the FDA. A home study is a pilot of my center to learn how to develop a natural history study for rare disease population to inform regulatory decisions, and it's being designed from the ground up. A natural history study is a study that follows a group of patients carefully for a period of time to better understand their condition. And this specific natural history study aims to provide additional statistical power to future randomized clinical trials of therapies for MLD treatment by serving as a potential source of external control. In other words, what we learn from patients today can reduce the burdens of patients tomorrow. However, missing data is a common challenge to traditional natural history studies. For example, patients and caregivers may get tired of traveling between the home and clinic for study visits, and then they dropped out. So what can we do about this missing value problem? We innovate. So there are a few exciting new features that are explored and implemented in this study. First, we use a multi-stakeholder approach to engage patients and their caregivers and others to minimize the burdens of patients while maintaining the scientific integrity of the study. Second, as Pam said, it is a sightless clinical study. So we will provide a tablet to each participant so that a trained clinician, Ms. Hensley, will conduct a study assessment through the video conferencing right at where you are. And we have also created a mobile phone for study participants to download to their own phones so that they can report their health events easier and in a timely manner. Last but not least, it's very important that we have a very knowledgeable clinicians, Ms. Hensley. I will engage each participant and their caregivers, provide advice, suggestions, follow up, and answer your questions. So if there are some impression about this study only serve the MLD population, I think is a bit too limited. In fact, we designed this study to inform, in order to inform a more general sense of how we can tackle the challenges of conducting similar study for rare diseases. When participating in natural history studies and randomized clinical trials, MLD patients and the patients of other rare diseases may share similar barriers and challenges. So therefore, this pilot not only help us know more about MLD, but it can also teach us how to build a regulatory ready natural history study for rare diseases in general. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Josie Hensley. I am the clinical coordinator for the study. And as Vanessa mentioned, my background is in pediatric nursing and pediatric research. So I'm excited to bring that combined experience to the home study to provide a patient-centered and family-centered approach to the study. We've been honored to have patients and their caregivers join us as we've developed the study, so we can make sure that we're bringing it to you with the assurance that it's easy to participate and accessible for everyone. So from a practical perspective, what would your participation in the home study actually look like? So the essence of the home study is the study visit. And as opposed to many traditional studies, these study visits are entirely virtual and flexible around your schedule. Furthermore, we're going to provide you, as Martin said, with a tablet that you can use in order to participate. So this is what our tablets look like. And they will be shipped to you with all of the necessary applications already downloaded and prepared so that it's easy for you to use. We'll also send you like a welcome packet with further instructions about the study, as well as how to use the tablet and the different applications on it. So the study visits are completed every 3 months for a full year. Additionally, you're going to have the opportunity to enter some other information into our mobile application called SHAPE. The information that you enter here is related to healthcare encounters such as sick visits, well visits, and even hospital admissions. So while using the SHAPE app is an optional component of the study, the information that's provided here is highly valuable as we continue to inform the FDA and industry on the progression of MLD as we continue to work toward FDA-approved therapeutic and curative treatments. And throughout this entire process, I will be with the study participants to help guide you through the process and answer any questions that might come up. All right, so then what do the actual study visits themselves look like? So the study visits consist of 2 primary things. The first is filling out surveys online, and the second is a clinical assessment via Zoom. So at the time of your scheduled visit, you're going to go online to the I Am Rare registry website and fill out some surveys. And then when you're done with those, you'll grab your tablet, open up the Zoom app, and connect with me, and we'll complete a clinical assessment together. That assessment is going to include looking at motor and verbal function. So the entire visit, the surveys plus the assessment, should take no more than an hour. And as I said before, these will be every 3 months for a full year. So, and then as I mentioned before, you have the option to enter additional information into the SHAPE app regarding healthcare encounters that occur between the visits and throughout the year. So overall, our goal with the study visits and the data that we're collecting is to provide the most robust data that we can in order to continue to advance treatments for MLD patients. So your participation throughout the year is one of the best ways that you can have a direct and positive impact on current and future patients living with MLD. So I look forward to continuing to work with the families that are already enrolled in the study and connecting with those of you that might be interested. And if you have any questions or need help getting through the beginning processes and getting started with the study, I'm always here to answer those. So thanks again for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you so much, Josie. And then we'll hear from Maria Cappalos next.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Oh, okay, great. And can you see me? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Maria Cappalos, and I am the co-founder of the Calliope Joy Foundation and Cure MLD. And I want to offer a patient-family perspective on why this project is more than just important. It's an amazing opportunity for the MLD community and the rare disease community in general. I'll start with a question that I've been getting from a lot of MLD families, which is, we already have a natural history. In fact, we have 2. Why do we need to participate in this one? And that is a very good question. what is remarkable about this project is that while we've had wonderful doctors and scientists and families working to collect data for over a decade on MLD, this partnership is being initiated by the FDA. So we collect data with the ultimate goal of having an application for a drug therapy that the FDA can say, yes, we feel confident that this therapy is effective and it's safe and it's going to make a difference in the lives of patients. So to get to that goal of regulatory approval, you need to have really good data. And Dr. Ho likes to say, show me the data, because that is the way that we patients can get therapies. I think one of the things that really struck me about this project from the very beginning was when I was working with CBER and FDA, and when they explained why they were doing this project, they said that so many families, so many patient families come to the FDA desperate for help, desperate to know how can we get a treatment for my child or for my family member. And the FDA says, you need to have natural history. You need to have excellent data. And that's a huge challenge, especially for patient families who are focused often on raising money for research. It's easy to sort of forget about the importance of data collection that the FDA can use to grant approval. So this project is being spearheaded, funded by the FDA to help us give them the information they need so that MLD can join the ranks of the 5% of rare diseases with FDA approval. So I know that you guys are being asked to do so much that COVID has put extraordinary pressures on our family, but I hope as many of us as possible will work with CBER and NORD on this amazing project, which will teach doctors and researchers about this disease, improve care and treatment for our children today, and ultimately bring us the revolutionary therapies which will bring us a cure for MLD. I believe firmly, without question, that in our lifetime, we will have a cure for MLD. I do not say that naively. I have talked to the best doctors and researchers. We have incredible research, and now we just have to help the FDA get the data they need so they can approve the therapies, make sure that they're safe, make sure that they're effective. We're asking a lot of the FDA. Gene therapy in particular requires that the FDA approve a very costly therapy for children who are not sick yet, who are pre-symptomatic. So this is why this data is so incredibly important, to help us get therapies that can be reimbursed by insurance companies, that will change the lives of children and improve the care of families today. So thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer questions at the end, and I hope that all of us can support this remarkable opportunity for our community.
Thank you so much, Maria. And thank you all for your truly unique perspectives and timely insights on this home study that we're embarking on together. I think we can pivot now to the question and answer section. So I'll invite all the panelists to turn their videos back on, and also encourage the audience to submit any questions that you have in the chat. I know we have a couple that have come through already. So we'll collect the questions as they come in and try to get through as many as possible. And then if we don't get to your question, please, of course, feel free to email us at mld@rarediseases.org with any follow-up questions. So our hope for this portion of the webinar is for it to feel a bit more conversational and centered around discussion. So maybe I can start with a question for Josie. We have a question here. How does this study reduce the burden of participation and make the experience as accessible as possible for patients and caregivers?
That is a great question. So one of the primary ways that we really embarked on this while we were designing the study was by collaborating with a patient advisory committee. So we have a committee of patients and caregivers, and that has been their role as they have gone through this journey with us to help keep it true, make sure that we're really designing this in such a way that we are taking into consideration the burdens that families are already facing with other studies that they're enrolled in, and with the care that they're already giving their loved ones. So that is one way. And then of course, by providing you with the tablet, as just, we will send it to you, we'll get it all ready and set up so that hopefully you can just get that in the mail, open it up, and participate pretty easily. And then, of course, part of my role in the study is to make myself accessible to all of the patients and caregivers that are participating so that I can help answer any questions that you have and guide you through the process. So it's really designed to be an interactive study so that we're working together, and the patients are not and caregivers are not shouldering too much of the burden.
That's great. Thanks so much, Josie. And maybe Maria, just kind of picking up on some of that, can you speak to why this study and the way it's designed is important for the community, and maybe even perhaps a little bit of what it was like serving on the advisory committee for the study?
Well, we've been working very hard, the advisory committee, and it's taken months to design the study. And I think it was a humbling prospect for all of us, project for all of us, because we had really, really brilliant people, scientists and biostatisticians and regulators. And, they kind of came in with so much enthusiasm and passion and saying, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And we would have to say, whoa, one of the biggest challenges we talked about was how newly diagnosed families, and we wanted newly diagnosed families, were so overwhelmed. They could barely, process the diagnosis. So enrolling them in the study was going to be uniquely challenging. And that's one of the reasons we brought Josie into this project, because we realized we needed someone to support the families emotionally as they worked with this data collection project. We also, I think we came to learn that, the FDA, wants to approve drug therapies. They want to save children's lives, and yet they really struggle with the challenges of rare diseases when you have a disease population that is 1 in 40,000, and that there's literally, in our CureMLD registry, we only have about 74 children in that sample. So how can you construct meaningfully robust data to, assure regulators that this therapy isn't, just working as an outlier, that that's really going to be impactful and that it's going to be safe. And so, I mean, we've worked really, really hard to represent the patient voice. Believe me, there were some pretty intense conversations, and the scientists and the biostatisticians were exceedingly respectful and understanding. And I think they learned a lot too. I think the FDA, I feel like, I remember talking to one of the doctors and saying, I feel like the FDA learned that, data doesn't just kind of come in this, pile of computer information, that there's a lot of blood and pain and suffering and heartache that goes into collecting this data. So I think that everyone kind of on both sides, I was really moved by the passion of the FDA to advance therapy. And then I think on their side that they saw, well, gosh, there's a lot of more emotional work that goes into data collection than people had realized, that it wasn't just simply a clinical question, that it was really an emotional connection and keeping the families engaged. And the families were being asked to do so much already.
Yeah, that's such a poignant point. Thanks for that, Maria. I think maybe I'll pivot to another question. Maria did touch on this on her remarks, but we do have a question here, and maybe it's just sort of an expansion on those initial points, but I'll pose the question perhaps first to Martin and then invite Pam to respond as well. Perhaps you could speak a little bit more about what makes the home study unique and how it does differ from other approaches to MLD natural history studies that exist.
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa. I think it's an excellent question. What differentiates this study from the other is that first, we have a multi-stakeholder approach to design the study so that we would be, collaborative partnering mode with patients and their caregiver in design and analyze the data set. To me, I think more importantly is that we work very hard with the reviewers within the FDA, and in order to make sure that the data points being collected from this natural history study would would be likely be able to be used later in the randomized clinical trials down the road. What I'm saying is, a lot of times when the data is being collected, sometimes the data points are being certain outcomes are being defined slightly different from the conventional ongoing clinical trials. Sometimes it would be the collection of the frequency of the data point may not be sufficient, for understanding the condition behind these numbers. So we work very closely with my colleagues who are reviewing these submissions within CBER, and making sure that we can hit the most bang for the buck, so to speak, to maintain the scientific integrity and collect the information we need. At the same time, reduce the burdens on patients when collecting those information. And I also wanted to add that in addition to the study being siteless and meeting where you live, more importantly, the information that you collected is would be likely complementary to perhaps the other natural history study efforts. What I'm saying is that we have a regulatory decision-making focus, whereas the natural history study in the other settings are more for medical research purposes. So I don't see those two are mutually exclusive, but rather I see them as highly complementary. So next, I pass it on to Pam.
Thank you, Martin. That was a good answer to the question. I think I would just add very nominally, excuse me, I think that's going around our clearing the throats. I think one point to be made here in this whole virtual way of conducting this study that often is missed because we think historically about what it means to go to a site and participate, is that this information doesn't go away. It's made available for the families. They own this information. Their record is their record, and it can be shared with their clinicians. It can be for regular healthcare decision making if they want. If there's information there that's unique that it makes sense to share, or they want to share, it could be shared, as you said, with other studies and work that's being done. It's an enduring resource that could be made available for other purposes down the road. The information is not lost. So that's another unique thing that often goes misunderstood, perhaps.
Yeah,
can I just say one thing
yeah,
too?
please,
That
please.
I just wanted to add too that what's unique about this, and I think that Dr. Escolar and Dr. Adang are doing tremendous work on their natural histories, and even they would say that their natural histories have different levels of strength and insight into, because they've collected the data in different ways. But I think one of the things that's really, really important about this, and what's remarkable about the project, is here's the FDA saying, okay, we keep telling people to give us the data we want. Now we're going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to provide funding. This is being funded through CBER, by the way. We have serious skin in the game to help patients get us the data we need, as Dr. Ho says, to give me the data so that I can get you the therapies fast, and I can convince insurance companies that the therapies are safe and effective and meaningful. And this is a remarkable, to my knowledge, I don't think anything like this has happened before. And it's an amazing honor for the MLD community to sort of lead the way, which makes it harder because we're the first to do it. But I do think that this is a remarkable, groundbreaking opportunity that CBER has funded and supported with NORD. And we were just lucky to be chosen as the disease state to work with them. Although I don't know if CBER always agrees that they like working with the MLD community, but I mean, it's a tough disease. It's a very tough disease. And one of the examples that I like to use is that we get to teach them what's important. So for example, one of the early conversations we had, some of the folks, I can't remember whether it was CBER or the clinical teams, one of the people asked, which percentage of children get feeding tubes? They had assumed that feeding tubes were kind of something that people opted into. And I explained to them that the vast majority of our patients, especially the younger ones, they get feeding tubes almost immediately. And that, it's not a debated point within the community. And that insight, that little subtle insight, was very important for them to develop meaningful efficacy points. I mean, yeah, it would be great for our children to be able to walk, but it would also be really great if they could eat. It would be really great if our children could sit in a chair. One of the things that they learned, I remember early on, was like they were worried about children walking. They were very focused on walking as a primary efficacy point, a goal of research. And I said, we would be really happy if our children could sit in wheelchairs and travel, because the disease impacts their ability to do so. So we had really good conversations about things that, that in other diseases make sense as primary goals for like proving that the therapy is working. But we said we would be really happy if our children could sit comfortably. We would be happy if they could control their hands and communicate more effectively. So it was that nuance from the patient community that's really important.
Yeah, such important points, and certainly, a huge collaborative learning experience for all of us to be working together in this way. So, thanks for those points. I think I'll pivot maybe to just a few tactical questions that have come in, and these might, be a little bit more direct, but perhaps, Martin, you could start us off. If there is somebody who's enrolled, an individual who's enrolled in another natural history study for MLD, can they also enroll in the home study?
Yes, definitely yes. I'm saying that is because, as I mentioned before, what makes this study unique is its focus. And as Maria had mentioned, the other trailblazers such as Dr. Asperpa have created a very detailed, a very important, high-impact patient natural history study. And yet, I think the focus is more about understanding the development and the progression of the condition, and therefore, I think because of the difference in focus, we would be highly complementary to each other, and more importantly, our study is focusing on the very absolute minimum set of data, so that we can minimize the burdens on patients. And so therefore, it's quite different from a general purpose natural history study. So therefore, by combining the information from from a general purpose natural history study with a regulatory focused natural history study, I think that would be surely a win-win for the community of MLD patients. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And then maybe Josie, are there any restrictions or specific eligibility requirements for what stage of disease a participant is in order for them to be able to participate?
No, participants can be in any stage of MLD progression. So we really invite anyone with an MLD diagnosis to participate. And that even includes, children that have been diagnosed by newborn screen and aren't even showing any symptoms yet. And similarly, if families have lost a loved one due to MLD, they would still be welcome to enter some information into our registry. Certainly they wouldn't be participating in the video assessments and that sort of thing. But even whatever information they could provide in the registry would continue to assist us and just help with that data collection to understand the disease progression component.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. And then Pam, we have another question here. Are you going to use an electronic informed consent for the participants in this study? This is question number one. And then question number two, how long will the study be active for?
So to answer the first question, yes. When Josie showed you the tablet and mentioned that it would be shipped to the participants with the right software in it. A part of the registration process includes an electronic consent. This study has is IRB approved, and the consent content was approved by the IRB. And Josie can help those who have questions or want to have support in walking through that consent process. But the consent is accessed through the tablet, and the participants can save a copy of what they've consented to. As I think Josie, you touched upon it in one of your slides, that our focus is looking at a year's worth of study data, visit data from the participants, and after that, data is aggregated, de-identified, and analyzed and processed for consumption by the FDA. So a few months after that. So all told, probably a year and a half is what one can expect.
Yeah, that's great. And then there's no real like hard closing date for the study. So as you kind of mentioned earlier, the data set itself will be this enduring resource for the community to access, you know, now and in the future. That's great. So let's see what else. Oh yeah, so okay, we have another question here. This came up a little bit also in some of the opening remarks, but we have another question about how we see the home study benefiting the rare disease community as a whole. So, you know, why is this an important framework that we're developing for this study, and how can it be leveraged as an example or a demonstration project for, you know, other rare disease communities as well? Maybe Martin, if you don't mind kicking us off, and I would love to hear from other panelists as well.
I would love to. Thank you. I think when you mentioned these questions, what I have in mind is pictures of a group of our colleagues are passionately trying to understand and wrap our brains around how to design the natural history study. I think we spent a tremendous amount of time, you know, from the FDA side. And if it's only serve only, you know, if it's only serve one rare diseases, then I think it would be too limited. I think as a result, in this study, we would expect to have, you know, to have publications to share the lessons learned in the design process and the implementation and analysis process of the whole study, so that people doesn't need to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, but rather they can, you know, based on what we've learned and follow perhaps some roadmap that we have developed, and then to improve upon that, you know, that lessons. So I think so. Therefore, I think that all by itself is a very important, I would say, deliverable of this study. And I'm looking forward to that, you know, that publication. But we have to do it first, right? So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And we certainly are, you know, blazing the trail forward.
Yes.
Maria and Pam, I don't know if you have any points you wanted to add in response to this question as well.
I would just add, you know, this whole randomized control trials for people living with rare conditions, children, conditions that where there's unmet medical need and they're progressive. This notion that, you know, we would have to pick a group of or identify a group of folks who would go into a placebo arm is just has real ethical issues. It's really challenging to recruit. So, you know, what we're knocking on the door here is being able to decipher, as Martin says, lessons learned for how we could leverage natural history data that is established in a regulatory, with a regulatory rigor, so that we don't have to put people in these placebo control arms where appropriate, that we could really use this data to serve as synthetic controls. I mean, that is one aspect of Holy Grail that people are looking for, and rightfully so. So if we can chip away at trying to achieve some of that, or learn how we can improve upon and eventually get to that goal, that would be a wonderful thing to do or have happen as a result of this study and the work that in the lessons learned, as Martin said. So it's something further down the road, but it's not out of the question. If you think about where we are today, all I have to do is think about, my personal connection to MLD, and we thought capturing data at home in laptops and these big, monstrous 5-pound items where patients were being cared for. And we thought that was progressive. We thought that was wonderful because it helped improve quality of care right in the home. But that data was locked in those laptops and never to be shared, never to be learned from. Those opportunities were squandered. So think about what we're doing here. And the progress that we're making. I have no doubt, as Maria said, that we will get to the point where a cure for MLD takes place in our lifetime, and that we can learn about how to establish synthetic controls for these situations where there's a real ethical challenge, and recruitment is an issue. So that's another thing that we're looking to hopefully contribute to as a result of this project.
That's so great. And Maria, did you have some comments?
And I would add too that, looking even further down the road, and when you see, obviously CBER is interested in gene therapies, and, I can't, one of the things that when we went to the FDA and spoke, one of the things because I drove in the car with Dr. Adang, and she said, to ask the FDA to approve these kinds of gene therapies is such a heavy lift. They have to be sure that these therapies are safe and effective before they do them on children who on the surface look perfectly healthy. It is we're used to the idea of giving children a heart transplant, or I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. Giving people a heart transplant when they have a heart defect, or giving people cancer treatment. We have never, on a medical scale, treated children who look perfectly fine, who have clean MRIs and have no symptoms of a disease yet. So for the FDA and CBER to understand what they are approving, what this means, to transform the field of medicine, they have to be sure that they are making the right decision and that they have taken every step. And so I think, I was really humbled. I don't think data collection is as sexy as a clinical trial, but data collection is really important if you can't get the FDA to be comfortable and feel secure. And then the next part of that is reimbursement, because we're seeing already that when the data isn't strong, when the FDA has questions and hesitations or asterisks by the review, the insurance industry and the payers and Medicaid will say, well, wait a second, we're not sure that this is even an effective therapy. So, we are seeing right now in living time, therapies fail because the insurance companies won't pay for them because they say, well, the data isn't very compelling. And so I think that lesson is so much a part of this story, that we need from the very beginning to say, okay, we know what we're talking about. We've done our due diligence. And as Dr. Ho says, show me the data. I'm going to make a t-shirt. But I feel like as advocates, we miss out on that because it isn't as emotional and compelling. And once, I'll start a pharmaceutical company. No one's saying I'm going to start a database. That doesn't seem like the thing I should be doing when a doctor tells me my child has a very serious illness. But in fact, you should be starting a database and a natural history for the FDA.
Yes. Thank you, Maria. I, being a statistician by trade, to me, data is everything. And so therefore, I greatly appreciate your kind words about the importance of why the FDA are insisting on having a robust data for our work. So I just want to add one last point. In this study, actually, we have a wonderful component that we are going to study how accordance, how agreeable the grade that being given by Ms. Hensley and the individual caregivers in terms of evaluating the status of their child's status. And we look into it is because instead of relying on physicians, if we can find a way and if we discover that perhaps the parents would also be able to do such an assessment in a relatively reliable manner, then I think that by itself can be a very powerful way for the for the parents to describe and to understand the progression of their children's condition. So I just want to add that to it. So therefore, data is very important.
Show me the data.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. This has been such an excellent discussion. I think we all have our takeaway that data is so critically important, and the right type of data collected in the right way is so critically important. I sincerely thank each of our panelists for joining us today and for sharing the poignant insights and experiences and underscoring the novelty and importance of the home study. And I also want to thank our audience for spending the afternoon with us today. We welcome your engagement and collaboration. This is such an opportunity, and we really hope that you will join us in the home study. After this webinar, we're going to circulate a brief survey, and also the recording of the webinar will be available to watch on demand. And of course, please do visit our home study webpage on rarediseases.org, and feel free to reach out to us as well at mld@rarediseases.org. And thank you again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.